This video is sponsored by Simply Safe. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Oh my gosh. That's way heavier than I thought it was gonna be. Oh boy. Oh, that is super sketchy. Because if I go too far, I cannot stop it from falling. Oh shoot, okay, here it goes. Over the years, I've made a whole lot of stuff. I've completely renovated the inside of our house. I've made climbing walls and tree houses and decks, but I've never designed and built a structure from the ground up until today. Now, to be perfectly honest, I don't really know what I'm doing, but whatever it is I end up building is gonna be right here. Earlier this year, we put in a pool, and when we did that, we had them pour this big pad back here so that I could put some sort of a structure on it. And since then, I've been working on the design. Speaking of, let me show you the plan. For the past few months, I've done like 5 unique designs for this building, and I ended up on this one. Of course, all of these have been built in Fusion, and that was helpful for me so that I could figure out exactly what the framing needed to look like, and the roof, and the sheathing, and the siding, and figure out how much material I need, and it showed me how many decisions you actually have to make when you're designing something like this. Now, like I said before, I don't know what I'm doing, so I don't think I got all those decisions right, but it did force me to think about a whole lot of stuff. But anyway, after making all those decisions and changing stuff a whole bunch of times, I finally got the framing exactly as I needed it, and Fusion output these drawings, which means we can go start cutting wood. This showed up today, and this is all of the lumber that I need to build the entire thing and cover it in sheathing except for the rafters. They're super long and they're gonna have to be custom ordered, but we'll talk about it in the future. I wanna tell you about this. Now, this is gonna be multiple videos, and I really hope you'll stick around because what I wanna do with these videos is not just show you how to do the thing that I'm learning on the fly, but also to talk about the design and choices and time and money, which brings us back to this. Between this stack of lumber and the rafters, that will allow me to build the entire building and get it weathered in so that it'll stay dry on the inside. And all of that material together is about $2,500. That's having it delivered to my house. But anyway, just to give you an idea, $2,500 will let you build the entire thing and get it weathered in. Now, let's go frame a wall. Well, I got the first half a wall done. Now the other half of this is actually just gonna be a straight normal wall with no windows, but I wanted to briefly talk about this. If you've never framed a window before, it's actually really easy, but there's a couple of terms that you might need to know. This one out here that goes all the way to the top is the king stud. This one on the inside is sometimes called a trimmer, and that holds the header, which is up here. That's gonna transfer the load from this little piece up here down all the way to the floor. And then this piece down here is the sill, just like a window sill. The piece underneath the sill and this one up here are called cripples. Anytime you add a window or door, you have to make sure that you carry that load from above down all the way to the surface below. Anyway, so there's a little lesson on the terms that you might run into. I gotta lay this thing back down and build the next section. Together, these two pieces are gonna make up the back wall, and I built them separately so that I could lift them easier. The bottom plate is made out of pressure-treated 2x4s, but I'm still gonna put this piece of foam sill tape underneath it in between the wood and the concrete. Now, typically, you would get help to lift walls and hold them into place. I'm just gonna give it a shot and see if I can get one of these up enough, like temporarily, so I can start kind of placing the rest of the stuff. I'm not entirely sure that it's a good idea. I mean, I guess it's all right. I don't know. I'm gonna lean it back a little bit just so it's on this brace. so that it won't fall over. Not too bad. Okay, it's definitely leaning back, but that's fine. This one's definitely heavier because of all of the stuff on this side, but we're gonna try it anyway. Oh, don't fall. Don't fall. Real bad day. That's pretty cool. Okay, I wanted to get these two pieces up so that I can connect them together, so I can like clamp them and screw them together to make it one item. But also I wanted to figure out exactly where it needed to be. It was a little bit loose in the plans as to where it was gonna go, but now I know exactly where it needs to be to fit and look right. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock these two pieces together and then add another support on the front just so it doesn't fall over in the meantime while I build the next wall. Ooh, that one's heavy. That wall is up and attached in the corner, and I've also got it squared up. So those two walls are ready to attach to the concrete, which leads me to something that I'm very excited about. I've really been looking forward to getting one of these. This is, I don't even know what you call this thing. It's like a powder-based hammer. Basically, you take a 22 shell, you drop it in there, you close it down, then you set it on a nail, and then when you pound it with the hammer, it shoots the nail down into the ground, through the wood, into the concrete. Sounds awesome, but I've never actually tried it before. First things first, because apparently these are pretty loud. Okay, now the one thing here that might not work is that they only had the number 3 shots at my local store, which may not be enough to get this nail all the way in, but we won't know until we try. Here goes nothing. Hey! Look at that. That was perfect, actually. Sweet. Now I just get to do it a bunch more times. It's day 2. So yesterday I worked for, I don't know, about 6 hours or so to get this much done. And that includes filming, which does make everything slower. So today I've got a full day ahead of me, even though it's like 1,000 degrees outside. And I want to try to get both of the other walls in place and tied together. Wish me luck. That wall is about ready to be put up, but I ran out of nails and I wanted to show you something real quick. These are the nails that I use, and they're on a coil, and that's because the framing nailer that I have is a coil framing nailer. A lot of times framing nailers have a straight magazine and roofing nailers have a coil, but there definitely are both kinds of each. So if you're building something like this and you go to the store to rent a gun, it doesn't necessarily have to look like this. Just make sure you're getting a framing nailer when you need it and a roofing nailer when you need it. There we go. That's legit right there. This wall is very simple. There's no windows, no doors on it, except that it's 12 feet tall. So all of the pieces are just big. And because of that big span, these long 2x4s tend to bend a little bit. So I'm adding some blocking in between each one of these pieces. Since these are 16 on center, the blocking is 14.5. And that will just kind of stabilize the entire thing, especially while I lift it, which is gonna be interesting. Okay, let's see if I can even lift this thing, actually. Oh my gosh. That's way heavier than I thought it was gonna be. How do I get underneath it? Okay. All right, here we go. Oh boy. Huh. All right, so far, these walls, oh, that is super sketchy. So far, these walls have not been that big of a deal, but this one is worrisome because if I go too far, I cannot stop it from falling. I also have to slide it to the left, and it's very heavy. Oh boy, this is really tall. Okay, how do I do this? Oh man, this is so sketchy. All right, okay, I'm not touching it, which is really cool. I didn't think that was gonna work for a second. Now, I need to gently put a crutch out here. Oh my gosh, my heart is beating so fast. I just realized that that camera at the top is completely out of my reach, which means it's just gonna run until the battery dies. Obviously, getting some help with something like that would be smart. I really wasn't planning on keeping it up there. I just wanted to see if I could lift the wall. And then once I got it to a certain point, I'd kind of committed. Luckily, it is stabilized, it's in place, so I can start clamping it to the other wall and then locking it in with some screws. But it's still really unsteady. Until I get all of these walls connected to each other, none of them are really that stable. And before I can connect them to each other and to the ground, I have to make sure that they're square. Now, one way I'm planning on doing that is measuring diagonals across. So from that corner to that corner, that corner to that corner, and if those numbers are the same, then it's square. I tried to wait to build this until it was fall, till the summer temperatures were kind of down, and last week they were down, and now they're back up, and it's really, really hot. Anyway, now it's time for me to start working on the front wall, and this one's a little bit different because it's the same size as the back wall, obviously, but it's got a big double door and a window on it, so I have to build it a little bit differently than I did that one, but it's still gonna be two pieces, and I'm gonna put them up one at a time. The last of the difficult walls to lift. Okay. When I was designing, I was trying really hard to think ahead for the sheathing and for the drywall because I wanted those to be able to end up on studs. So they needed to be at 48 inches or at 96 inches or something like that. And so I tried to make these sections work for that ahead. And that was really easy to do in Fusion. It was a very handy thing to have there to be able to figure out the spacing and the placement for everything. But I ended up with this weird little section. But I assume stuff like that is just gonna happen when you don't have a lot of experience and you're trying to take so many things into account. Part of the problem is that I have not anchored that tall wall yet. And so I'm a little bit worried about like pushing it too far and it falling over. It probably won't, but it'd be better if I knew that it wouldn't rather than probably. Okay. Okay, nothing fell. Now I can start screwing stuff together. Now, this right here does not make any sense. I understand that, but that's because we're missing parts. They're gonna have a header in here that's gonna be tied in that way. There's gonna be a piece of blocking in here that's gonna be tied up into everything. And then there's gonna be something on top of it that's gonna tie them together for the rest of this front wall. But we're not there yet, so we're just gonna temporarily screw it all together. I took the weekend off after framing all this up to let it sit out here, get some rest, and of course it rained. So all my framing is wet. I don't think it'll be a huge deal because it's supposed to be dry for the next couple of weeks, so I'll get it closed in. But I was looking at the model this morning and I found a problem. Luckily, it's something I can still fix, and it has to do with load-bearing and non-load-bearing walls. Basically, the front and the back walls are not load-bearing. And so when I modeled in this window right here, I just copy and pasted it to the side. But that sidewall is definitely gonna carry the load of the roof. And looking at it now, that 2x4 header up there above the window is not gonna be enough to carry the load of the roof that's coming down. So I can replace it with one of these. I apologize for the sunglasses, but it's impossible to look at the camera with the sun right there. Basically, the last framing that I have to do on this is maybe the hardest part. It's two big triangles, and they go from this high point all the way across to the low point on the front and the back. And I've got a model, but I don't know if I did it right. And maybe there's not even a right or wrong, I don't know. They're not load bearing. And it maybe would have been better to build this shape into the lower wall and just lift up 2 sections rather than basically 4 sections, but this is what I did. So now we have to make this section and then put them way up there. All right. Oh, don't you fall off. So after about 3 days of work, I've got all of the wall framing done. And it's fantastic, and I would love to go ahead and start adding the framing for the roof, but that would be a bad idea because of stability. As it stands now, everything is basically a bunch of rectangles, and there's nothing to stop those rectangles from wanting to rack left and right in every direction on every wall. So we need to stabilize it by putting on the sheathing. That's gonna lock all of the walls into place so that when I go to put the pieces of the gigantic roof on top of it, the whole thing's not gonna move around from underneath. I'm ready to start putting these panels on, and I wanted to talk a little bit about them, but also I wanted to point out the fact that I have to change nails for this. I have to use a different kind of nail to put on the sheathing than I did for the framing, and one of the downsides of having a coiled framing nailer is that it's harder to find certain types of nails. So I actually had to go to several stores to find the nail that I was looking for in this format. So if you're looking to buy a framing nailer that you can use for all this stuff, a lot of the ones that use the straight cartridges of nails might be easier to find nails for. Also, before I start nailing this up, I want to talk about the sheathing that I'm using, because honestly, I don't really know what's the best option. There are several options, and I decided to go with the zip system, which is like an OBS panel with a spray-on waterproof membrane, and it helps keep the water out of the inside. I've seen other people use this with good success, so I'm gonna try it, but honestly, I have no idea if it's better than anything else. I just know with this, you can avoid putting house wrap on top of the sheathing. But anyway, putting this or any other sheathing on, you also have to dial back the pressure and set the depth of your nail gun to make sure that you don't blow through this, because that's just gonna cut down on how waterproof it is. Before I nail this on, I wanted to point out that I sat this on a 1/2-inch scrap on the ground to lift the panel up so that groundwater won't leach up into the panel, because that'll just make it swell and ruin it. While I finish up the front of this, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm building this the way that I'm building it, because there's some stuff I haven't mentioned yet. As far as the roof line for this thing, my wife found a picture of a really cool house that she liked a lot. And it had these 2 different sections of roof that were leaning in opposite directions. One of them was really tall and one of them was really small. And there's a name for it that I cannot remember at the moment. But anyway, we liked this roof line, so I tried to emulate it when I was designing this thing. Now, the other big thing here is the overall size of this building. I made it so that it's 197 square feet on purpose. Where I live, you don't have to get a building permit for any structure that's under 200 square feet. So, to save time, to save money, and just to make it easier on myself, I got below that 200 square feet. Obviously, if you're building something bigger than this, having a permit and having inspections is really good for you. So I'm not opposed to that. But given my time constraints and the money that I was trying to save, it actually just worked out this way. But on the flip side, I did get contacted by an architect. He heard me talking about this project on our podcast called Making It and reached out. He was nice enough to look over the plans that I had drawn up and actually gave me some really fantastic feedback to change the roof that I'm gonna do later on, and just to verify that all of my walls, my windows, my doors, and all were done correctly. Anyway, big thanks to Byron for that help, because I do feel a lot more confident having somebody go through this whole design to make sure that it would pass code if it had to. Not really sure how to do this. Whoa. Oh, shoot. I'm good. Oh. Okay, this is why there are crews of people that build things. Whew. Sketchy. How do I get that over? There's an awful lot of friction.
It's not gonna slide well. Huh. Don't stand on the top rung of ladders, kids. It's a bad idea. I can't reach either end of it. All right. Oh, shoot. Oh.
This video is sponsored by SimpliSafe, and I've told you about them a bunch of times because it's a great system. It's a great way to protect your home, your stuff, and the people in it. But the holidays are coming up, and that's another reason to have SimpliSafe around. Maybe you're cooking a turkey that might burn. They've got smoke detectors. Maybe you've got frozen pipes that might leak. They've got water sensors. Plus a whole bunch of other stuff to make your system keep an eye on your property. The way it works is you go to simplisafe.com/ILTMS or use the QR code, and then you build out the system that you need for your home. Only the cameras and sensors and doorbells that you need for your house, and then they ship it to you in a box. You can set up the entire thing by yourself in about 30 minutes. And once it's all set up, you connect to the app. This will allow you to arm, disarm the system, manage everything about the system, and you can watch all of your cameras directly from your phone. And of course, you can keep an eye on your system from your phone, but you can also get monitoring through SimpliSafe, and it's less than $1 a day. It's absolutely worthwhile. Plus, there's no contract, so you can cancel it at any time. SimpliSafe also has something called ActiveGuard, and this allows the monitoring agents at SimpliSafe to see through your outdoor cameras and look for potential threats, maybe people that shouldn't be coming up to your door or window in the middle of the night. They can actually talk to them through the camera. They can set off alarms, and they can even call the police if they need to. It's just another layer of protection that SimpliSafe offers, and it's pretty fantastic. I mentioned the holidays earlier, and they've got a holiday deal going on right now. If you use the QR code and go build a system on SimpliSafe, you're gonna get 50% off the system and the first month of monitoring for free. It's a great deal, it's a great company, go check them out, and huge thanks to SimpliSafe for sponsoring this video.
Okay, here we go. But I've definitely got to find a better way to do that.
All right, we're gonna try this again, even though the wind is blowing. Okay, I've got the front done. I actually have almost all of the sheathing done except for that little back triangle up there, but we'll get to that. Right now, we actually have to finish up what we have so far with the flashing tape. This is gonna cover all the joints between all the different panels and help keep air and water from getting in there. This stuff is really easy to use. It is very sticky, but you basically just peel it off, cover the joint, then you use this roller to kind of squish it into the surface, and apparently there's a chemical reaction that happens between the tape and the green stuff on the outside that actually bonds together. It makes it really nice and watertight, and that happens when you go over it with the roller and do what's called wetting the tape. One thing that's kind of cool is that this roller has a little Z built into it. It actually makes a little impression of a Z shape so you can see all the places that you've rolled. Now, of course, I don't know all the ins and outs of using this tape. This is my first time doing it, so I've been watching videos about how to work around the windows, how to work around the doors, how to overlap the tape. I found a video from Matt Reisinger, I think that's how you say his name. He's really good at building homes, and he has a whole video on just doing the tape, plus using a liquid flashing to cover the nail holes at the bottom, which I do plan on doing. I'll put the link to that down in the description. Finally, the wall sheathing is done. It took me quite a while to finish all the sheathing and the taping, and I went back and filled most of the nail holes, at least up to eye level, with some liquid flashing. I actually went a lot higher than I needed to, but it's just a safeguard against future moisture, and it's not hard to do. Speaking of hard to do, the next thing is actually gonna be really hard to do, and that's the roof. Unfortunately, I think I already have a problem, but that's something we're gonna deal with next time. Thanks for hanging out with me. Catch you later. Anyway, after making all those decisions and figuring out exactly what the framing was needed, and they need to be there for it to stay dry. But it also built them separately just because it'll be easier. Dang it, wow. With some sheathing before we start building the roof.